Good morning, and here we are starting lesson 7.10, more about counting on your clock. Write what are different ways you can read time on a clock. You are going to have to write the names of the digital clocks and then label the clocks with the children's names. So let's remind you that you are going to be highlighting the minute hand with your blue and the hour hand with the red. You are also going to need to show the digital time on your digital clock. You need to show your counting on your clocks, and I'm going to tell you that when you are looking for the children's names, you're going to find that down here at the bottom. You must read this. It says, Luke plays football at 3:25. Beth eats lunch at 11:45. Ivy reads a book at 6:10, and Rowan eats breakfast at 7:15. Each of these clocks will match up with one of those times, and after you've done your counting and know what time it is, you'll also know which child to put to which clock. Okay, going to the next page. Here's what we're learning today. These are different ways to say and write the time. Let's take a look at this, if we could. So it says there are different ways to write and say the time, starting with my minute hand and my hour hand. You should always highlight those hands so you know what we're talking about. The clock is showing 5, 10, 15 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock or 8:15. 15 minutes is 8:15. Now let's talk about that for just a second. I'm going to show you a little circle that has been divided into 4 parts. Each one of these 4 parts is called a quarter. It's kind of like a dollar. When we were talking about money last week, we talked about the fact that there are 4 quarters in a dollar. So each one of those 4 parts is a fourth or a quarter of that circle. So 1/4 or 1 out of 4 is the same as like a dollar. A quarter of a dollar is 25. A quarter of a circle is called a fourth or a quarter. Here's a quarter, here's a quarter, and here's a quarter. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about fractions. This is a very quick lesson in fractions. And if your clock goes this much around the circle of the face of your clock, you are covering 1/4 of the clock or 15 minutes of the clock. This is what you're going to need to know for today's lesson. All right, so let's go back over here. So I'm going to divide my clock into 4 parts. And if I count 0, 5, 10, 15, I have covered 1/4 or a quarter of my clock. I've covered 1 out of 4 spaces, which is what that fraction means. 1 space out of a possible 4. That is read in clock language as a quarter past. So 1/4 of the clock is a quarter past. Then we're going to take a look at what happens on the next clock. It says 30 minutes after 8 or half past. I'm going to divide my clock again into quarters. But this time I'm seeing that I'm starting at 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. I have gone 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes around my clock, or I have gone halfway around my clock. I'm going to shade in half. And I'm going to show you that on our circle, if we divide a circle or the face of the clock into 2 parts, we have half on one side and half on the other. 1 part out of a possible 2 parts, 1 part out of a possible 2 parts. So if ever I have a half on a clock, that stands for 30 minutes, or half past whatever hour it is. And this one was, sorry, I'm going to go back up to this one. This one was quarter past whatever hour it is. All right, so back to this. And if you need to go back and think about that again, you certainly can. You can always review and go back and do the video again. So when we're talking about 30 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock, we're talking about 8:30. So it is still the 8 o'clock hour, and we have gone 30 minutes past, or we have traveled halfway around the clock. So your job is to draw the minute hand to show the time and then write the time. And yeah, so always make sure that you're showing your counting. Make sure that you're highlighting your hour hand in red. Highlighting that hour hand in red, and then you'll be putting the minute hand on in blue. And this one says 5:15. Well, we just talked about what that looks like. I think you should be able to figure out that that is 15 minutes past. Then I'm going to move my quarters because they're still sitting here. So you're going to do the same thing on all of these clocks, and as we just did on the other page. Then you are going to move on to the problem solving. Make sure that you use cubes and read, draw, and write. Make sure that you use cubes, read, draw, and write on 16, 17, and 18. I want you to pay special attention that they're asking for all of the ways that you could write the time that is on this clock. So there's probably more than one right way. I'm not going to tell you how many, but there is definitely more than one. So you're going to have to look carefully at that one. And remember that you're going to do this page last. Come over to the next page. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 problems that are review from what we've been doing up to this point. You need to do this page. Then you need to come back and check with Ms. Starr on how you did on all of these pages. And then, of course, you will be doing the exit ticket for your teacher and sending that to her today. So there's your exit ticket. And you are going to be sending that to her today. So I'm going to tell you to go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll be back in just a minute to go over, when you're ready, to go over what you did before you do your exit ticket. All right, pause the video. Are you done? Okay, here we go. So let's take a look at what you should have said on each of these clocks. I hope you remember to show your counting, and if you need to pause the video and look at my counting, you certainly can. So we had 11:45, or 45 minutes after the hour of 11 o'clock. And Beth was the person who had 11:45. I think Beth at 11:45 was eating her lunch. So Beth needed to be associated with this time. Luke needed to be associated with 3:25, or 25 minutes after 3. Make sure you're showing your counting. And if you're not getting the hours correct, you probably ought to go back and use your small clock to help you with that you have at home. Rowan was connected with 7:15 because we are 15 minutes after the hour. But did you also notice that Rowan, you may have noticed, Rowan went a quarter of the way around the clock, which could be written as quarter. You didn't have to write this, but I'm just telling you now that we've had the lesson, 7:15, or 7:15. So that was the only one that could have been written as 7:15. Okay, then we have Ivy, who was associated with 6:10 because it was 10 minutes after the hour of 6, and it looks like Ivy was reading a book at 6:10. All right, so let's move over. I did want to show you a couple things that I forgot to show you before. There is another way to write this time when we're talking about 8:30. You could also write it as words in 8-30. You could write it as 30 minutes after 8, or you could write it as 8:30. So there's a couple of different ways that you could have written that. And hopefully you remember to shade if you had a quarter past or a half past that you shaded. So let's take a look at how you did. 1:15 was shown on the first clock. It was 15 minutes after the hour of 1 o'clock, or I could say that it is quarter past 1 o'clock. Okay, now on the second clock, you should have said that it was 9:30, which they had up there, or 15 minutes past 9. You could also write that as 9:30 on your digital clock, or as I said just a moment ago, you could have written it in words 9-30. We usually do say 9:30 when we see that particular time. Again, we have quarter past 5, which is 15 minutes past the 5 o'clock hour, or 5:15. Okay, continuing on. Here again, we have quarter past 10, which would be 10:15, because that is 0, 5, 10, 15 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock, 5, 10, and 15, or a quarter of the way around the clock. 40 minutes past 3, or 3:40, making sure that you count carefully, and 7:30 would be 7:30, could be written in words this way. Make sure that you shaded half of the clock because it is also sometimes read as 7:30. Okay, let's take a look at the next page. We have 15 minutes after 11, or 11:15. That would be quarter past 11 because you've gone a quarter of the way around the clock. Quarter past 4 would be 4:15. Why? Because you've gone a quarter of the way around the clock and you've counted off 5, 10, 15 minutes. On number 9, you should have said 8:25 because it is 25 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock. 10 minutes after 6 would be 6:10, counting 5 and 10 minutes after the hour of 6. 2:30 would be the same as 2:30. You could have also written it in words as 2:30, shading in half of the clock and showing your counting. You have gone halfway around the clock face, meaning that you have gone half past the hour. 45 minutes after 3 o'clock would be 3:45, or 45 minutes past 3, and I've counted around 45 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. And if you're making a mistake and saying that that's 45 minutes after 4 o'clock, well, you need to go back and think about what happens to the hour hand as you're moving around the clock. It also moves. So it gets closer to the 4 than it is to the 3. However, we are still in the 3 o'clock hour, as it says up here. It's 45 minutes after the 3 o'clock hour. It is not into the 4 o'clock hour yet. 5 minutes after 7 would be 7:05, and I hope you remember to put in the fact that you have 0 tens. You have 5 minutes, but you don't have a 10-minute, which is the same as what we've done in Eureka Math. So 7:05 is how that's written, or 5 minutes after 7. 30 minutes after 12 would be 12:30, or 12:30, or you could write it in words as 12:30. Quarter past 10 would be a quarter of the way around the clock, passing 15 minutes, or 10:15. All right, let's continue on with our next page. So if you were paying attention to how this problem read, Lily eats lunch at 12:15, Meg eats lunch at 12:30, and Katie eats lunch at 2:15. Which two girls have the same time? Well, a quarter past is 15 minutes past, so it's definitely not Meg, because 12:30 does not match these other two times, so hopefully you wrote Lily and Kate. Okay, soccer practice starts at 4:30. Gabe arrives at soccer practice at 4:15. Does he arrive before or after the practice? Well, if he's coming at 4:15, that's 15 minutes before 4:30. If you needed to draw a clock, that's fine. So you needed to give a word answer. Gabe arrives at soccer 15 minutes before the start of practice, which is at 4:30. Hopefully you got that right. Now you had to show all the times on this clock. I counted my way around to see that I was 25 minutes after the hour of 3, which would be 3:25. I saw that one right here. Is it 5:15? No, it is not past 5 because the minute hand tells me how many minutes have passed. It's not telling me the hour, so it could not be that one. And it's not 5 minutes after 3 because we are in the 3 o'clock hour, but we have gone 25 minutes, so it can't be 5 minutes past 3. However, we could say that it's 25 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock because I counted 25 minutes since it was the 3 o'clock hour. So you needed to have the first one and the last one circled. Of course, you need to do the exit ticket before. I won't be talking about that, but I am looking now at the last page. You needed to write the time on this clock using words, and there are several different ways you could do that. I counted on my clock to get 5, 10, 15, which is a quarter of the way around the clock, a quarter after 6, or I could have said it is 6:15. I could say it's 6:15 or 15 minutes past 6. So these are the two that we are really looking for. Writing that out in words, 6:15, 15 minutes past 6. This would be the digital way to write that time with 15 minutes past the hour of 6. You could have, or I've gone a quarter of the way around the clock. All right, so moving down to your money, 25, 35, 45, 46, because we have a quarter, a dime, and a penny. I hope you showed your counting. You could have showed 46 cents using the cent sign, or you could have also showed it using the dollar sign. You have $0.46. Either one of those would be acceptable. Make sure that your dollar sign, if you use that, is on the left side of the number. If you use the cent sign, it should be on the right side of the number. What time is shown on the clock? I'm counting around 5, 10, 15. It's 15 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. I could have also said that it is 7:15 because I have gone a quarter of the way around the clock. What number can be written as 647? Here is word form, here is standard form, 647. When you read these two numbers, they read exactly the same. 647, 647, and I hope you had great success doing that. Now it is time for you, after you've gone over everything, and make sure that you're feeling comfortable about doing the exit ticket. So you are now going to do the exit ticket and send that to your teacher. And I'm going to wish you a great day of learning.